Why don't we go ahead and get started then? The date is Tuesday, January 25th, 2022. This is a regular time and place for a meeting of the Kings County Board of Supervisors. Due to issues arising from COVID-19, the board's using WebEx teleconferencing platform today. And so you may participate by World Wide Web. If you'd like to make a comment, please use the, make sure your name's in the WebEx system, and then use the raise your hand feature and wait to be recognized, or try to get somebody's attention. Members in the audience that have filled out speakers cards will be taken in order that they appear as they were given. And so we appreciate you being here, being part of this meeting today, and glad that you made it. So each vote will be a verbal or voice vote so that everyone will know how board members have voted. And with that, Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll and see if we can establish a quorum?
Joe Nevs,
Here.
Richard Valley,
Here.
Doug Verboon,
Here.
Craig Peterson,
Here.
Richard Fagundes.
Here. All members are present. Thank you very much. We have established quorum. We will be able to conduct business today. The next item on the agenda is the invocation by Dr. Lisa Lewis, Director of Behavioral Health, and then remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. For this morning's invocation, I would like to offer a prayer, which is based on the prayer for a new year from the Corrymeela community of Northern Ireland. Let us pray. God of this new year, God of our ongoing story, we pray for all those who have entered this year with anxiety, with exhaustion, and with grief. We pray for our healthcare workers who have given so much of themselves in these past 2 years. We honor their sacrifice, their courage, and their strength. May they find rest and restoration. We pray for ourselves. May we notice the habits in ourselves when we are exhausted in our own helplessness or in conflict with others. May we remember your grace. We pray for the wisdom to pause and reflect before we act. May we respond with love for our brothers and sisters in this human struggle, rather than from fear or anxiety. And we pray that this may be a year of restoration, of lives filled with new purpose, renewed hope, and deepening connection, so that instead of praying for something to end, we may discover again the joy of beginnings. Amen.
Thank you, Dr. Lewis. Now join me as we honor America by reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is unscheduled appearances. Any person may directly address the board at this time on any item on the agenda or any item within the subject matter jurisdiction of this board. Speakers will be limited to 2 minutes. I think we do have Heather Silva.
Yeah, that's correct.
Good morning, Heather. Thank you for being here.
Morning, Chairman, members of the board. Heather Silva with Public Health. I know I only get 2 minutes, so I'll make this short and sweet. But I wanted to come up today to recognize Miss Darcy Pickens, who's the third row back right here. I've had to keep this from her because she isn't one that likes to be put on the spotlight, but in this instance, it's well deserved. Darcy started with our department as a contractor in June of 2020 to assist with the department's COVID-19 response. She also had previously worked for our department as a health educator a couple years prior to that. After a couple of months of assisting our department as a contractor, Darcy decided to become a permanent part of our department. And in November of 2020, she became the Assistant Director of Public Health. Since then, Darcy has jumped right in and assisted with everything COVID related. When you think of any part of our COVID response efforts, Darcy was involved. She was an integral part of our testing efforts, our vaccine clinic, assistance with schools, our quarantine and isolation program, King's Cares, as well as many other areas of our COVID-19 response team. A couple months ago, Darcy was appointed to the interim public health director role for our department while the recruitment for our director was taking place. Along with assisting with COVID-19, she has and continues to oversee our entire department in all areas of public health. Our department has faced quite a bit of challenges within the past 2 years, and Darcy has always been a leader who has been able to remain positive and resilient regardless of the circumstances. Darcy's last Board of Supervisors meeting will be today, and after next week, she'll be relocating out of the Kings County area for bigger and better opportunities for herself and for her family. Darcy, I say this on behalf of myself, the DOC team, and the entire Kings County Public Health Department, that you'll be extremely missed, and we thank you for everything that you have done for our department, the county, and for the community of Kings. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. Darcy, any rebuttal? Mr. Hill. No evaluations are due. Mr. Hill, would you like to address?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank Darcy and more importantly, thank Heather for doing that. So I'm not the one in trouble. As mentioned, she's been pivotal during the COVID response and that's how we brought her back. She thought she escaped when I first came here, but we found a way to trick her to come back. It's going to be a big loss for the county to see her leave. And hopefully she'll take up a spot where we may be able to continue to engage her knowledge and her experience. Thanks, Darcy.
Good, thank you. And Darcy, thank you. Appreciate all of your wisdom and knowledge and your experience. And so hate to see you go, but hopefully there'll be another door to open and give you an opportunity to continue to work in Kings County. Thank you. Dr. Lewis, you want to talk about your trip? You have a graduation coming up next week? Good. Safe travels. Good luck. I know a lot of those graduation activities were canceled during the COVID, and this is kind of trying to catch up on some events. So good. And I wish you have a great visit and a great trip. Thank you. We also have with us this morning Mr. Roberts. Mr. Roberts comes to us doing some studies on groundwater management. So thank you for being here. And if you have a chance to talk with him, certainly appreciate the opportunity. Anyone else does the clerk have any record of anyone else under on schedule?
Not have any speaker cards and no one online with their hands raised.
Very good. We'll close out unscheduled appearances then and move to the next item, with the next item being a report out on closed session of the meeting held on January 11th. Mr. Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Your board took no reportable actions on the January 11th meeting.
Good, thank you. Next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from the regular meeting held January 11th. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes?
Move it presented. Second, Verboen.
Moved by Verboen, seconded by Fagundes. Additional discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Joe Nevs,
Yes.
Richard Valley,
Aye.
Doug Verboen,
Yes.
Craig Peterson.
Aye.
Richard Fagundes.
Yes.
Let the record show the minutes stand approved unanimously. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is the consent calendar, and we do have a couple of discussions to be had. Kyria, you want to talk about the
Yes, Mr. Chairman, just one quick,
item first, which is item G1?
just one quick change to our agenda item for capital projects budget 21-22. I would like to request to remove the chart that's indicated on page 3 and take the recommendation as is listed in the background.
Very good, thank you. All members clear on that? Problems? The other item comes from information technology with an item regarding the updated email system. And John, would you like to point out those differences?
Sure. Thank you, Chairman. Yes, we were informed yesterday we were going to purchase 3 years of the Microsoft Office 365 by adding licenses to the human services contract. So just yesterday, our reseller told Microsoft that we were going to, it looked like it was going to happen. Microsoft comes back and says, oh, we can only do the 27 months to match up where HSA is going to stop. So that leaves 9 months difference. I do have a breakdown in that dollar amount, but basically I did talk to Jim Erb. He says if this is approved, we can encumber that 9 month leftover this year and next year. And then basically it would be like a down payment on May 2024 when it comes due again. But that way too, it would be matching instead of having 2 contract dates. We'll all tie in with HSA. But unfortunately, I found out literally yesterday at 3:30 in the afternoon. So.
Thank you, Mr. Devlin. Are there any questions for John? Any problems with those amendments? Hearing none. Thank you, John. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
With that, the remainder of the consent calendar stands intact. So, Chair will entertain a motion to accept the consent calendar as
I'll make a motion to approve as presented and discussed. Verboen.
moved by Verboen, seconded by Peterson. Additional discussion? Hearing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Joe Nevs,
Yes.
Richard Valley.
Aye.
Doug Verboon,
Yes.
Craig Peterson,
Aye.
Richard Fagundes.
Yes.
Let the record show the consent calendar stands approved by members present. Thank you very much. We'll now move to regular agenda items, and the first one coming from Waste Management, Bob Henry, on Waste Management Activities. Good morning, Mr. Henry.
Good morning, Mr. Neves. Our last quarterly report of activities was on October 19th, 2021. Report period covers from October 19th, 2021 through January 24th of 2022. Past activities, October 19th, Kings County Environmental Health Services at KHF. This was a monthly unannounced inspection of landfills B17, our MSW landfill, B18, our hazardous waste landfill, and B19, our MSW landfill that is under a delay of closure. During the inspection, there were no areas of concerns and no notices of violation. October 28th, Baker Commodities notifies KHF of their need for carcass disposal. This was due to a fire in their electrical room at their Kerman plant. Total tons disposed was just a little over 5,600 tons from that fire that they received. November 11th, Kettleman Hills facility tour. We provided one for the City of Hanford Vice Mayor and Core Board Member Diane Sharp and Superior Court Judge Randy Edwards. November 15th, we had Kings County Environmental Health Services back out at KHF. This again for the monthly unannounced inspection of the landfills. During that inspection, again, no areas of concerns and no notices of violation. Also during that inspection, they did the CUPA, Certified Unified Program Agency program inspection. We did receive one minor violation for error on the hazardous material inventory. KHF did not include the quantity of haz waste the equipment shop generates, as this is covered elsewhere with DTSC. So we had one place, but not within the CUPA. November 17th, DTSC at KHF for a focused inspection. DTSC had 3 inspectors reviewing the truck engine program. DTSC requires all trucks delivering waste on a hazardous waste manifest to be equipped with a 2010 or newer engine. During their inspection, there were no area of concern and no notices of violation. November 23rd, KHF was at Avenal in Kettleman City for Supervisor Richard Valley's Operation Gobble Gobble. KHF donated $5,000 in support, and Avenal received 400 birds and Kettleman City received 80 birds. December 13th, Kings County Environmental Health Services back out for their monthly inspection. No areas of concern and no violations. January 10th, Kings County KHF again back out for their monthly inspection. No areas of concern and no violations. Future activities that are coming up. DTSC Director Dr. Meredith William to visit Kettleman Hills facility. It will either be on February 9th or 10th. It hasn't been shored up yet as to which date exactly, but one of those two. And then there'll be a DTSC Class 2 permit modification in early April 2022. What we need to do there is add a new constituent from an already known release. So we have groundwater well K65 detected a new constituent. This is 2,4,5-T, which is a herbicide. So we need to add that in our plans. This is a release from surface impoundment 18, which was clean closed in the late 80s and is under landfill unit B19 phase 3. And then the last item, KHF public meeting to be held in April 2022. Items to be discussed include groundwater monitoring results from 2021, air monitoring results from 2021, contingency plan, and then also placarding of trucks coming into the facility. That's all I have for this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Henry. Any questions or comments for Mr. Henry? Hearing none, thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Chair will accept a motion to accept the report. So move.
Second, Verboen.
By Fagundes, seconded by Verboen. Additional discussion? Hearing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Joe Nevs,
Yes.
Richard Valley.
Aye.
Doug Verboon.
Yes.
Craig Peterson,
Aye.
Richard Fagundes.
Let the record show that item stands approved, 5 in favor. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks. The next item comes from Behavioral Health. Consider discussing an agreement with Self-Help Enterprises and North Star. And Katie?
Good morning, Chairman Nevs, Board of Supervisors. I'm Katie Ernst. I'm the Deputy Director with your Behavioral Health Department, and I'm here to seek approval of an agreement between Self-Help Enterprises, Up North Star Limited Partnership, and Kings County in order to allocate Kings County's whole person care one-time housing funds for use towards the Kings County No Place Like Home project. On December 22nd, 2020, your board approved the Behavioral Health Department in conjunction with Upholdings and Self-Help to apply for round 3 competitive No Place Like Home funding. And also your board authorized the department to contribute the county's one-time whole person care funding allocation to the project should we be awarded. I'm thrilled to share with you that that application was approved and we have been awarded for the proposed No Place Like Home project called North Star Courts. North Star Courts includes 72 family and single low-income housing units, including property management that lives on site and also on-site supportive services and case management. There will be 22 specific units that are identified for persons who are currently experiencing homelessness or at risk of homelessness. A huge thank you to all of the agencies and departments and organizations that assisted with the application. That included the Human Services Agency, Kings Tulare Homeless Alliance, Kings County Housing Authority, and Kings County Homelessness Collaborative. I am back here today before your board to request your approval on the agreement between the aforementioned organizations so that we can formally allocate those whole person care funds to the North Star project as a capital contribution. This agreement delineates out the roles and responsibilities for that contribution, including a 20-year commitment to the project for all parties and semi-annual reporting. The Behavioral Health Department will be coming back before your board in a couple of months with a memorandum of understanding that details out the supportive services that the Behavioral Health Department will contribute to North Star Courts. But at this time, I'm very excited to share that Jessica Hoff-Burzak and Sarah Ritten from Upholdings are also here to join us this morning and provide some more specific information about the project. Jessica, would you like to take it away?
Yes, good morning. Thank you, Katie. Good morning, supervisors, public, directors of Kings County. It's so great to be here. As Katie shared, we're thrilled to have secured all the financing necessary to be moving towards acquisition of the land and construction start. I think last time I was with you, we were still in the process of finding the remaining dollars. We ended up being successful with a variety of state and federal programs, one of which, in addition to the behavioral health units that Katie described, we also have money that will help us specifically house families and individuals who are agricultural workers, which obviously is a huge part of the Central Valley. And then we also were successful in securing bonds from the California Debt Limit Allocation Committee, and then as well as 4% tax credits from the Tax Credit Allocating Committee of California. So with all of those resources, we call it lasagna financing, and we are prepared to close on all of those resources, none of which would be possible without the local funds that you guys have brought in. One of the key ways that we can compete in the Valley for state resources is to have local leveraging. So I really commend your board for prioritizing affordable housing and special needs population groups, because without those local commitments and local support, it's really, really challenging to compete for state resources. With that, you can see in front of you our location. We're excited to be hopefully closing on the land as soon as next week, actually. That's primarily what your capital contribution will fund, so that we have the land while we finish the permit process with the city of Hanford and prepare to start construction in June. And then the plan as of now is that we would be leasing the first units next fall, so fall of 23. And hopefully we'll be bringing the buildings on as they're ready, so that we're housing people as soon as possible and not waiting any longer than necessary, since we know the housing crisis is so intense. And with that, we'll go to the renderings. You can see a sense of what's coming. We're working with a local architect based in Fresno, who designed both the project we have under construction in Clovis and another project that's under construction in Porterville. So if anyone wants to tour one of those, of course, I welcome you anytime to come kind of see what the product is going to be. It's a variety of buildings. We are including elevators, which I know is sometimes unique in the valley for 2- and 3-story buildings, but we feel with many people potentially having mobility impairments, we think it's really important to provide accessibility in the most robust way possible. It'll be a highly green, efficient development, and have plenty of green open spaces and community amenities, including a community building where we will have both on-site management as well as service provision, both from my company, from self-help, and of course from the county through the behavioral health partnership. So that is North Star Courts. As Katie said, we will be back to formalize the service agreement. That's another requirement that we'll be working out with behavioral health in the months ahead. And hopefully we'll see you all at a groundbreaking in June. Any questions? I'm available, but otherwise I'll give it back to Katie.
Thank you so much, Jessica. I'll wrap up with sharing that there is no impact to the county general fund for this agreement. Your board accepted these funds on October 1st, 2019 in the amount of $1,166,795. Both expenses and revenues were included in the department's fiscal year 21-22 adopted budget in budget unit 420000. Mental health. And again, I'm here and we're here to seek your approval of an agreement between Self-Help Enterprises, Up North Star Limited Partnership, and the county to allocate these funds towards the No Place Like Home project. As Jessica shared, she and then Dr. Lois Unchung and myself are available to answer any questions you might have this morning.
Good. Thank you, Katie, and thank you, Jessica. Are there questions or comments?
No questions here, but the comment, I worked with Dr. Lewis and Katie and Jessica. I believe she came to my office about a year ago, showed me the project here. It was in my district at the time. We have a lot of homeless around here and people that don't need to be in the hospital and don't need a place to go. And just keep them off the street, get them pointed in the right direction. I think it's a good project. And with that, I'll make the motion to approve.
Thank you, Doug. Moved by Verboen. Second. Seconded by Fagundes. Additional questions or comments on the motion? Hearing or seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Joe Nevs. Richard Valley.
Aye.
Doug Verboen.
Yes.
Craig Peterson.
Aye.
Richard Fagundes.
Yes. Let the record show that item stands approved, 5 in favor. Thank you very much, everyone, and thank you, Katie and Jessica.
Thank you.
Dr. Lewis.
Groundbreaking in June, right?
That's right. We'll be in touch.
With that, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which comes from the District Attorney's Office regarding a grant application. And District Attorney Keith Fagundes. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm here with Executive Assistant DA Phil Espenshade. We presented before and have discussed the Family Justice Center concept. Several years ago, we were enlightened by this project in other counties. We visited those counties. And the basic concept behind an FJC is bringing all consolidated resources together for consistent and soft, clear handoffs from people who need services to those who can provide services. And what we found in other counties is that no other county put a Family Justice Center concept together without taking old buildings and tried to retrofit those buildings. This is a project that we want to take the family justice concept that is victim services oriented and turn it into really family services oriented in the sense that families of crime suffer in our community. So it's not just the victims themselves and their families, but it's also defendants' families who feel helpless in knowing how to help their defendants. So our family justice concept is much more broad scale than those seen elsewhere. We have a grant opportunity right now to get upwards of $220,000 in order to begin the seed money, feasibility studies, and other architectural concepts in order to consider fitting it into our community and the benefits that it has. And we've had folks come and tour our facility, and we've explained and presented this FJC concept to them. Rudy Salas, David Valadeo, Melissa Hurtado, all have been in support of such concepts and such projects. And we've had Jeff Garner from KCAO, he's been there. We've had upwards of 20 or 30 folks come through and ask, what is this project? Give us the tour. And nobody has said, oh, there's a better project out there. So we have wide support for the one-stop shop concept, everything from domestic violence interviews and services to sexual assault interviews, services, SART exams, human trafficking services involved as well. And it is to alleviate a victim from having to go from one service around the county that we already have to another and tell their story over and over again. It's much like our child advocacy concept that we presented and employed several years ago, which has been immensely successful. A child advocacy project is what brought us the canine therapy dogs and began our canine project. And we, of course, have developed that. We now have 2 canines in training to take over eventually. So there's a lot of foresight that goes into this project. We have built partnerships, we've provided training on the FJC concept, and we've gained momentum toward this goal. There is no match requirement for county funds, and very few counties actually qualify for this grant. So we're in a really good position to get some seed money. And I would point out that much like Dr. Lewis's project that was just presented, fabulous project, back when AB 109 was passed, we already had a new jail to handle the influx of the prison inmates that were being released. That was good foresight to begin those projects. And it's having the foresight to start these before it's a crisis is what will keep us ahead of the crisis. So I'll turn it over to Phil Espenshade, and if you have any questions of me.
Thank you.
The Family Justice Center concept is just is something that works. We're looking forward in California at a judicial system where people are going to be held less accountable for the crimes they commit. You can call a crime a felony or a misdemeanor, but the impact on the victim is going to be the same. They're going to suffer. And this allows us to look after our victims, no matter what the future looks like in criminal justice. And that's what we want to do. We want to look after the victims of crime and the families of defendants that commit crimes. Because invariably, if something's from a murder down to just being under the influence of drugs, people that are under the influence of drugs steal to get those drugs. So those people that they're stealing from are victims too. And we want to look after all of them. This is a great opportunity. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Bill.
Any questions?
Supervisor Peterson, you have a question for Ether?
Yes, I do, on the item. Thank you. Just curious, so this is a planning grant?
In essence, it's for emerging FJCs, meaning we already don't have one. So it is for the planning phase of it.
Okay, and then with respect to staffing, how do you fund that?
It's me and Phil at this point. And it is.
The concept of the FJC, Supervisor Peterson, is not that we would need staff to hire staff. It's that we provide office space and a place for our community partners like KCAO and behavioral health and all the community partners and agencies here to come and meet with the victim. So it's really providing office space. So we don't anticipate hiring staff for this right now at all.
And locations?
Well, we're looking at that now. Generally, they're right by a courthouse, and that would be fantastic if we could. The site where the solar farm is over there would be a perfect location, but we're open to any others.
Okay. I'm not sure that I've heard enough about the planning phases of this project to support funding a study of a building that we don't have information on staffing. I don't have enough information on need right now to support this, but I'm just curious from our county administrative officer, what do you see as staffing requirements, general fund application, any insight into that at all?
Supervisor Peterson, through the chair. There's always a consideration for staffing as well as future construction, but there are emerging continued grants that may apply and that we will be able to use hopefully for this process. So we will keep a close eye on those and apply those when appropriate.
And so I guess just from a planning phase, I've heard a lot about a building, but again, I haven't heard a lot about what's going, you said you want to build a building. Who's going to be located in the building?
Well, we have, as an initial step, it would be great to give you all the tour of the facility and how it operates now and why, yes, the brick and mortar isn't necessary for it. We anticipate in talking to the other community partners that we would not need new staffing and new people. It would be existing staffing consolidated, relocated to that phase. So we don't anticipate seeing new staffing. We have resources, great resources around. It's getting people to those resources, getting people to recognize those resources is the main issue. This grant funding is to provide the answers that you're looking for in greater detail. And it's that first step to give you those answers is what it is. So as far as the need is concerned, you really should come over and take the tour of the current process that a victim goes through to feel the need. I know Melissa Hurtado had said, wow, I've only been here for 2 hours, but I feel like I've been through the ringer, given every place we have to go here. And so that would be my first invitation. And you asked another second part, kind of.
Well, I guess, again, it's, so we're talking about coalescing staff in a location that you said is currently housed elsewhere. And I'm just trying to figure out the who's and the whys.
Well, ideally, we have the Prop 47 grant, and it is that concept that we really took existing resources and just networked them differently. What we're finding with victims and even defendants' families is that they wander aimlessly through our complex and through other places looking for resources to either stop their loved one from committing crime or help their loved one who's been a victim of crime. And it's hard to get them to those resources. And we have found that a lot of the folks we deal with, well, there's no delicate way to say it. They're not very well adept at taking care of themselves. So they need that soft handoff and they need to be empowered. And there's a whole process involved. So you have resources at behavioral health. You have resources at HSA. We have resources at the sheriff's office. We have resources at KCAO, champions, even family support resources. All of those entities of the county, we envision, and the best concept is to have satellite offices and people in one building at the place where victims go, which is courthouse, criminal justice area, and defendants' families. They recognize that. So that's why Phil said it's usually connected to courthouses.
Right. So the planning grant would be the development of the plans for the building, or is it gonna also include who's going to be in the building and square footage? What is the need?
It would include all that. You know, like everything that we do in human life, everything starts with an idea. And then that idea has to come out in words. And then once other people hear that idea, others may have other ideas that impact and grow it. I mean, we've been talking about this for 3 years internally in the office and publicly. And so the concept has been out there. We welcome anybody who wants to join to better the project because it's all about servicing people in our community. Just 2 weeks ago, to underscore, I had a mother of a teenager come to my office and say, where do I go for help? This teenager's on the wrong path. I know he's going to be a criminal if I don't do something, but I don't know what else to do. And so fortunately, Lisa Lewis was available because the needs that she described to me indicated more behavioral health issues that could help. I have not yet followed up on that. I sent an email to Lisa. We had a conversation, and you know that's how it currently works. But as I stand here today, I don't know if she finally made it to those resources and what the outcome of that was, because there's no mechanism to consolidate all that.
Well, and I just, you know, it kind of got derailed, but I've had a long discussion about building locations, the value of property that we have here. I know we're talking about, you know, possible use of old buildings, you know, here at the county. I think that, you know, the larger plan of building something that brings more, more of our departments that are offsite on location. And I think, there's an opportunity through P3, partnerships that we've explored a little bit. I think that, Lisa's off campus, child support services are off campus. It may be an opportunity to bring those services into one building. And I, the location is what the location is, but I think, in the greater sense of spending and time and money and effort, that maybe looking at the broader plan, the capital improvement plan has been laying there for a long time. We really haven't reviewed that. At least since I've been here early on, I went through that and it's pretty dusty. But I think there's an opportunity. You may have a need, the funding may, the access to funding like that. I just think there's a need to bring things here as to like a one-stop shop. And maybe there's an opportunity there to look at something maybe broader where, you have Lisa next to, your facility and there's a back door to say, hey, this person needs help. And, she walks through a back door, or he or she walks through a back door right into, someplace where, Lisa's folks are waiting. And so I think there's an opportunity for a broader opportunity. I don't know if this, I don't want to get started down a road where we're looking at a single project that we may have the opportunity to bring a larger energy and opportunity to. But I certainly respect, the opportunity of free money and planning. And so with that, I think we're not committing ourselves to anything today other than a study. And so after hearing this, I'm a little more willing to support this. But I think from a broader perspective, again, I think there's an opportunity to do something maybe grander and make county government more efficient.
And I'm happy to join. I think I mentioned the CEO, Ed Hill, as well as Ms. Campbell and I had spoken before about the capital improvement plan and how things do get derailed, the necessities of immediate life take over. But she and I had talked about, she understood, she actually went on the tour also and said that she would invite me on to the capital improvements committee and discussion to make sure, reminded me, make sure you get on that discussion, because this is something we need to look forward to. And she and I had the agreement then that the foresight, much like the jail, much like this project, that Lisa just presented, we got to have the foresight to try to be in front of it. This really is just seed money to see what are our options and what are the best options. Just because Bill or I have an idea about one particular piece of property doesn't mean there's not a better property out there or a better solution. And that's what this money will get us to the table, is what it does. I appreciate the support.
Thank you.
Supervisor Valley, you have a question, comment?
Mostly comment, Mr. Chairman. I just want to open up by saying I appreciate the vision, because that's the main thing that I get from both your appearances at the podium today, that it's a vision, and I respect the vision based on the fact that this is what you and your staff do every day. And the challenges that you just presented at the podium are challenges that you and others are faced with every day. Board of Supervisors, this is not what we do. We have a wider spectrum countywide. This is what you're focused on. So I appreciate that and I respect that. Just like I appreciate and respect Sheriff Robinson when he came here years ago and he said, I got a vision and a concept. And now we've been out here, we broke ground and cut the ribbon, and his facility is there, and he went through this same process. So again, this is very early on. It's grant funding to help build the vision, and I think it's a good use. It's a good use of funds. I think a yes vote today represents that we as county supervisors agree that there is a need, and that need is to do better, to consolidate. I heard you say to bring in different agencies and resources under one roof. I get that. I get that concept. That was presented for the last year and a half with COVID monies to, hey, let's bring the homeless, let's buy these hotels and let's put them by resources, closer to resources, and so they don't have to jump around. And I see that same concept here, 100%. And when you talk COVID, even today, look, 2 years in the pandemic, COVID resources are spread out around the county. And when people get it, they're still calling me, which then I turn around and call Ed. People today still don't know, where can I get a rapid test? They're learning because the health department, the lines at the health departments prove it. There's long lines. People are figuring out that's a lot of people. But on the other side, there's still a lot of people that don't know. And when they get it and they panic, what do I do? Where do I go? And our health department and the people, the resources that we've had around the county to put that message out there has done a good job of it. But sometimes it doesn't penetrate. So I get what you're saying. Somebody gets in a situation like that, victim or defendant, and it does impact the rest of the family, and they don't know what to do, especially if they've never been in that situation before. And so, again, the concept is there. I appreciate the vision, and I'll be backing that up with a yes vote today. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor Verboen.
Thank you. Well, thanks for the presentation. I think anything we can do to protect victim rights is needed in this county. I know we've had conversations in the past where the victims don't get protected, and we always protect the criminals. I think this is a good vision. One thing I would ask is that we work with staff. I know we have a plan with Banner. We put some money in a pot to do a future planning on the campus here. We'll make sure we work together so both sides know what's going on. So we might already have some of the studies done, and we can get a little more mileage out of it. But this may be a good deal. I think as you know, I've been a victim of crime and seems like my whole life. Never been charged with anything, but I've been had to go through the process, and it's very painful. I know you have victim witness in a little old shed out here in the back, and you got you know, the minors have to go, and you got a place in your office where they have the calming dogs to relax the people that have been traumatized. So anything we do to get this in one area, make it simplified for our victims, I appreciate. And with that, I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
Thank you.
The item's been moved by Verboen. Seconded by Peterson. Thank you very much. Additional discussion on the motion? Hearing or seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Joe Nevs.
Yes.
Richard Valley.
Aye.
Doug Verboen.
Yes.
Craig Peterson.
Aye.
Richard Fagundes.
Yes. Let the record show the item stands approved, 5 in favor. Any closing comments? Thank you, Pete.
No, thank
Thank
you
you,
all for the support. And once again, it's the vision moving forward before it's a crisis that requires a response. So thank you for that. And then, I don't know, Madam Clerk, what's the best time to pick up the agenda? I think the chairman has to sign this grant application as well. Is that?
Oh, you'll have to wait in line for that then.
Okay.
Take a
It'll be done as soon as the meeting's done.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Thanks. The next item comes from the fire department where they have 2 items. First item is to accept the modern hydraulic extrication. Chief Lynch, good morning, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Bill Lynch, Kings County Fire Department. Very happy to be here this morning with these 2 items on your agenda. The first one is to accept a grant from the Corcoran District Hospital Board of Trustees for the purchase of 2 brand new Hearst extrication tools. These are battery powered tools that I have to be frank, have blown me away. I didn't think batteries could do things that these things do, but they are stronger, quieter. They don't require secondary power, and they're lighter. And so through the work with Corcoran District Hospital and the personnel at Station 11, particularly Fire Captain Michael Ornelas, we solicited them to, for this grant, and luckily we were awarded. So these 2 Hearst tools will be located both in Corcoran and at Station 4 South Hanford. South Hanford is the second engine into Corcoran. So through their efforts of everybody at Station 11, we were awarded this grant, and I would ask that you accept the award of this grant of these 2 Hearst tools, and then authorize myself to sign the grant.
Good. Thank you, Chief. Question or comments?
Comment, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I thank Mr. Chairman. One, I want to thank the Corcoran District Hospital and the Kings County firefighters continuing to work well together. And I know you and your force appreciate what this hospital district has done. I was with you about a month and a half ago at the fire station in Corcoran, and with some of those hospital directors. So I think the bigger picture is on the next item where we see that even though this current item impacts mostly Corcoran, the next item, you've grown that relationship to where we're going to see
Correct.
impacts countywide, and I can't wait to get that one.
And I'll elaborate on that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So with this one, Mr. Chair, if you're ready to entertain, I'm happy to make a motion on to approve as presented. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Valley. The item's been moved by Supervisor Valley,
Second.
seconded by Supervisor Raboon. Additional questions or comments? Hearing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Joe Nevs.
Yes.
Richard Valley.
Aye.
Doug Verboon.
Yes.
Craig Peterson.
Aye.
Richard Fagundes.
Let the record show that item stands approved, 5 in favor. Chief, please continue as you talk about the chest compression system.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As Supervisor Valley alluded, several months ago, we received a grant and you approved a grant for the purchase of these Lucas chest compression machines. It was a grant through the Corcoran Hospital Board of Trustees. And in a photo opportunity that we actually had with them, Supervisor Valley was there and they got to see these machines in action. And, I've seen a lot of thumper machines, chest machines, these type of things in my lifetime, my career. And so you always wonder how well they're actually going to work when they're applied in the field. And this system by far is far and above anything I've ever seen. Some of the issues that we've dealt with staffing and patient contact and those type of things have been taken care of with this single machine. In many cases, we may not have to send someone in the ambulance to a hospital, and put our engine company out of service because this machine, the way it's applied and its mobility and its ability to get, be used. During this study session or this photo opportunity, Supervisor Valley was there. They applied the machine. We saw how it worked, and the board was very impressed with it. And through discussions with Supervisor Valley and several other members of our team, our agency, we decided that maybe this is something we should try to apply countywide because of the benefit that it actually provides. We have had multiple uses of this machine already, and it has truly made a difference in not only allowing us to keep our engine company in service, but patient care. It does such good CPR that it basically eliminates the human need. So I'm very happy this morning to ask for approval for this purchase of these 8 Lucas compression machines. So I'd ask that you approve the purchase of them, authorize this purchase manager to sign the purchase order, authorize them to sign the purchase order for the warranty, and then adopt the budget change. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
If I remember correctly, I made the motion to approve the chest compression device on one request that we did a demonstration here with Supervisor Valley.
Well, we did it with the hospital, yeah.
Try it out on you.
Strap you down the mower.
We can adjust
See
it so it doesn't.
how high you can holler.
Yes, sir.
So, and again, that original set, I'd like to point out that Fire Captain Mike Arnellis was involved in that. He's been our liaison, our contact with the Board of Trustees there in Corcoran for a lot of years, so.
I'll make a motion to approve this presented. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, could I second with a comment?
Yes.
Yes, again, Chief, and I know you hit on this just on how it frees up personnel. If I remember right, if a firefighter gets on scene, instead of having to wait for somebody else, this piece of equipment helps one firefighter get CPR going solo, correct? Because they do the
That is
breathing while the machine is doing the compressions, and the rate of the compressions is near perfect, where without the human error aspect coming in. But just hearing your firefighters talk about this, and obviously this is a piece of equipment that just shouldn't just stay in Corcoran, and the need is out there countywide. I think this is a very happy day for the County of Kings, and I want to thank staff for and admin for supporting the use of ARPA funds for this equipment, because I think the connection is there that Obviously, COVID is one of many impacts to our county firefighters, and whether it's the loss of personnel or the lack of the workforce, meaning we do need more firefighters based on so many impacts to the your workforce, chief, and COVID is one of them. And so making that connection, ARPA funds are a very good use here to buy this equipment for all the communities in our.
Yes, and I would agree wholeheartedly with that because it does allow us to minimize patient contact to maybe just one person on an engine company with dealing with the ambulance company. So it does allow us that isolation and keeping our engine companies in service because we have been impacted pretty heavily by COVID.
You should show us how it works on.
Now you should, if we haven't all seen it or the audience hasn't seen it, we should have a
Absolutely. A
a
demonstration of
display.
it,
Yeah.
It's on
Absolutely, we
YouTube.
can do that.
Okay. Well, we fire it up. Man, it's pretty awesome to see in person.
This is true. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the ability of it to do near perfect CPR is just amazing.
I hope I never need it.
Yeah, so do I. But I'm glad they have it if I do.
Yeah.
Additional questions or comments? The item's been moved by Verboen, seconded by Valley. If there are no other questions or comments, will the clerk please call the roll?
Joe Nevs.
Yes.
Richard Valley.
Aye.
Doug Verboen. Craig Peterson.
Aye.
Richard Fagundes.
Yes.
Thank you.
So the item stands approved, 5 in favor. Thanks, chief. Next item comes from administration dealing with the appointment of a public health director. Mr. Hill, would you like to begin the discussion?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Today, we're requesting your board appoint Rosemary Rand to the position of Public Health Director. Secondary to a vacancy for the Public Health Director, your board instructed staff to initiate a recruitment and fill that vacant position. Recruitment was concluded on December 21st, 2021, and a conditional offer was extended to Mrs. Rand. Ms. Rand comes from us from Fresno County Public Health. She has held positions in private health care as a care provider, case manager, quality management manager, and house supervisor. She also has over 20 years experience in public health where she has served as a field nurse, supervising public health nurse in public health emergency preparedness division, which will be very important during this COVID event. And then finally as a nursing division manager. Therefore, we're recommending your board appoint Rosemary Rand to the position of public health director and set her compensation at $12,916 per month, including management benefits, and set her vacation accrual rate at 160 hours annually. This concludes my report, and Ms. Ron was on the phone earlier, okay. And I would like to give her an opportunity to speak if she's interested.
Thank you, Mr. Hill.
Good morning, supervisors. I apologize. I'm having difficulty with my sound. But I just want to say thank you for the opportunity, and I'm looking forward to serving the citizens of Kings County as well as working with all of you. So thank you.
Good, appreciate it. Thank you. You're hitting us wall to wall here, so you're sounding good. Any other questions or comments?
If there's no question or comments, I'll move as presented.
Moved by Verboen, seconded by Fagundes. Additional questions or comments? Hearing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Joe Nevs.
Yes.
Richard Valley.
Aye.
Doug Verboen.
Yes.
Craig Peterson.
Aye.
Richard Fagundes.
Yes. Let the record show that appointment stands unanimous. Those, thank you very much and good luck. The next item comes from Public Health regarding an update on the local emergency. Here for the last time, making her final opinion, or what do they call that? Yeah, final appearance, but what are they, goodbye tour? Good morning, Darcy.
This is the encore, so.
Encore. Oh, yeah, that's true. Okay, on.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the board, Darcy Pickens, Public Health. Let me be among the first to congratulate Rosemary on her appointment. She's coming into a great county with a great team, so I know they will welcome her with open arms, and I look forward to seeing what they do under her leadership. Per your request, I would like to start today by providing an update on the Safe Kids Coalition. Safe Kids stemmed from work with Valley Children's Hospital, who at the time, back in 2016, was running Safe Kids Central California Coalition, which mainly covered the areas of Fresno, Merced, and Madera, with very little involvement from Kings or Tulare. Just logistically, that was very difficult based on the work that they were doing. Kings was encouraged to take the lead in the South Valley, which we did at that time, forming Safe Kids Kings County. As you know, Safe Kids was a collaborative effort aimed at preventing childhood injury prevention, such as drowning, burns, preventable sources of injury and motor vehicle accidents, childhood poisoning from common household items, and much more. Through education and interactive events, the main one, of course, being Safe Kids Day, which was held at West Hills on an annual basis. The last Safe Kids Day was held in April of 2019. That was our third annual event at the time. During the pandemic, the work of Safe Kids Kings County was discontinued as it was no longer safe or feasible to bring young children and school personnel into a large group in one shared collective space. The entire basis of Safe Kids is working together as a coalition to bring interactive activities to the community, ones that will engage both children and parents in lessons on injury prevention. And the work would be far less impactful without that collective in-person work. We actually attempted a virtual Safe Kids Day in 2020, and it just proved to be too difficult and really not in the best interest of the kids who, if you'll remember, at the time were not in school. That was kind of at the very height of the start of the pandemic. Should it be the board's will, the department can absolutely consider starting up the work of Safe Kids again once large in-person gatherings are considered safe and there are sufficient collective resources to keep the work going. So part of the difficulty during the pandemic was that so many of the agencies involved, not just public health, did not have the capacity to continue the work. It requires quite a bit of collective, again, in-person meetings and staffing, which we all know has been a huge challenge during this time. The opportunity to reinstate the coalition and even consider the development of local programming based on injury prevention still exists. Stopping it during the pandemic in no way bars us from reconsidering the effort. Safe Kids Worldwide actually recognizes that events and services related to the mission of Safe Kids are very likely to be suspended right now. They've made a public statement on that. So we are not alone in this shift and have not lost the opportunity to continue that work should we choose to. I think most of you know that the work of Safe Kids is close to my heart. I advocated for the initiation of the coalition in Kings and had the privilege of being a part of the Safe Kids Day, the first Safe Kids Day, including all of the kinks and lessons learned during that first year. So I do thank you for requesting an update on that coalition to check in on this important work. Happy to answer any questions related to that topic. Okay.
Yep. Thank you, Darcy.
Moving right along onto the COVID-19 update. We have continued to see a dramatic rise in cases over the past 2 weeks. January 17th through the 23rd, we had a total of 2,888 community cases. As a means of comparison, consider that during that same time frame, 1 month ago, December 17th through the 23rd, we had just 160 community cases. So we've reached an average of 412 cases a day, and those numbers do not yet show signs of decreasing despite being within just 5% of the number we saw at the peak of the last surge. I know there are states and some urban areas reporting they are seeing the peak of this surge or even a downward trend at this point, but we are not in that space yet. If the parts of our state that saw the greatest initial increase, such as LA, peak towards the end of this month through early February, we can expect to see the peak here 2 to 3 weeks later if trends stay consistent. There's been very little that's been consistent during COVID, but that's the prediction at the moment. The highest increase in percentage of cases has been among the 0 to 11 and 12 to 15 age groups in the past 2 weeks, though 20 to 49-year-olds continue to make up between 65 to 70% of all cases. This sharp increase in case numbers is in part what prompted the health department to begin issuing isolation and quarantine orders through our website rather than on an individual basis. With slow turnaround times for testing and people more people using at-home kits that are not necessarily reported to public health. We wanted to ensure that the information people need to isolate and quarantine is readily available. The shift also allows us to focus on patients at highest risk for severe disease, who we continue to contact as test results come in. Several surrounding counties actually made this switch quite a bit earlier in the pandemic, but up until now, we felt it was the best strategy to follow up on every case individually. That is no longer the case and not in the best interest of the public. We can divert those resources where they're needed. The long testing lines at public health were mentioned. Being able to continue to provide services such as that at the increased demand that we've been seeing lately, this shift really allows us to focus on those services. Over the past 2 weeks, Omicron has taken over as the dominant variant in Kings, making up 62% of the specimens sequenced so far this month. As a result, you may see a shift in the type of monoclonal antibody treatments offered. Those originally used, commonly referred to as Regencov and Bam-Edi, are not effective against Omicron. So a shift to oral antivirals and IV infusion monoclonals such as Sotrivimab, both of which are in short supply, are now recommended therapies for recently diagnosed high-risk patients. The department will be putting out a statement on this to local providers in the coming days. Local providers, including Adventist, are making that shift, and there should be additional updates for you next week. As I mentioned, those medications are in very short supply at this point, so we're trying to get a little bit more information on what supply may look like in the coming weeks before we put that statement out. But we have been talking to providers on a one-on-one basis. Excuse me. As of January 24th, the local hospital had 38 patients in med-surg and 4 in the ICU. Of those admitted, 34 are Kings County residents. These numbers represent a steep and steady increase in COVID patients at the local hospital over the past 2 weeks. And keep in mind that hospitalizations and deaths are lagging indicators. So we are likely to see those numbers continue to rise for some time. I've been reporting for some time now on the strain this puts on our healthcare system statewide, and our local hospital is now no exception. They've requested a total of 33 staff in various roles in recent weeks. Happy to report that 21 of those slots have been filled through the state resource request process. Although not what they requested, and we never want to see the hospital have to request outside staffing, the additional staff is good news, considering that you'll recall that initial request for staffing was just denied completely by the state. Unvaccinated patients continue to make up the majority of hospitalized patients, now at 83%, which is a slight decrease since the start of the surge. This is not altogether surprising. We know that Omicron is more likely to infect vaccinated individuals than Delta. However, the vaccine still offers excellent protection against severe disease, hospitalization, and death. I'd also like to note that among our hospitalizations since the beginning of the surge, just 1% of those hospitalized have been fully vaccinated and boosted. So particularly as Omicron becomes dominant, we're seeing how important it is to go get that booster. We encourage the public to take that step if they have not done so yet. Our PPE status has not changed. We are still maintaining a 60-day supply of PPE for our healthcare facilities. Last week, Public Health collected 5,617 COVID tests, despite the holiday on January 17th. The week prior, we actually saw just over that. Demand remains higher than we've seen in any past surge. The iHealth at-home kits continue to be distributed to everyone who receives a PCR test at our Hanford site or our mobile unit and in the Corcoran Clinic on Sundays. Though that supply is expected to run out this week. We have no word yet on additional shipments, though we continue to request as more allotments become available. Turnaround times remain slow, typically 4 to 5 days at this point, which is why it has been imperative that we offer those at-home kits to as many people as possible, as quickly as possible, which was part of the expectation when we received them from the state. The federal government is also offering free at-home kits, 4 per household, through covidtest.gov. So I encourage the public to sign up through that program as well. Last week, Public Health administered 550 vaccines with closure for the holiday and 789 the week prior. This is a slight decrease, but really not enough to be a concerning drop in demand at this point. As of today, we have 9,751 partially vaccinated residents and 65,231 fully vaccinated residents, which is 50% of the eligible population, not including prison inmates. A milestone, certainly. I've been waiting to get to that 50% mark for some time, but also an indication there's more work to be done. Our current breakthrough rate has increased to 9%. As mentioned, this is expected with Omicron, as we know it is more likely to affect those who have been vaccinated. But I want to remind you that we have seen only a slight increase in the percentage of hospitalized patients who are fully vaccinated. And that is where vaccines are most effective, is that preventing severe disease, and getting that booster drops your risk even further. Approximately 52% of our fully vaccinated population in Kings is boosted. That number is now available online. I do want to note that to make a slight calculation there, the number as it's presented says 16%. That's 16% of our entire county, not 16% of fully vaccinated individuals. 52% of fully vaccinated individuals. This surge, nearly 2 years into the pandemic, feels very different and at the same time eerily familiar to previous surges. There are fears around personal health and safety for ourselves and our loved ones, fears of school and business closures, and we are once again taxing our healthcare system to the point of exhaustion and a severe interruption in basic services. This is disheartening and particularly hard to watch as a public health professional. However, we have even more tools to protect ourselves this time around, and putting layers of mitigation in place can lessen the impact of Omicron, excuse me, on our daily lives, even now. To slow the spread and decrease the loss of productivity, learning, well-being, and lives, we can improve ventilation in indoor spaces. We can mask, preferably with a surgical mask, KN95 or respirator, as we know those are much more effective. We can get vaccinated and boosted with ample evidence of vaccine safety and effectiveness. And we can test and isolate if we do become positive. These are not difficult or complicated strategies, and they can truly make a difference for us collectively as a community. As Heather so delightfully mentioned, this is my last report to your board. And although it was a difficult decision to leave, I know your health department team will continue to work tirelessly to share this message and provide resources to make it a reality. I want to thank all of you, I'm not going to cry again, and Mr. Hill for the opportunity to help lead this team. It has been an honor and a privilege. I leave this week knowing that the staff have the incredible support of Assistant Director Heather Silva and the incoming director, Rosemary. I'm so grateful to have been a part of this work. So thank you again. This concludes my report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Good. Thank you, Darcy. Questions or comments for Darcy on her new beginnings? Not an ending, a new beginning.
There you go.
Supervisor Valley.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also want to say thank you for your services. Very much appreciated. You did a outstanding job during a very difficult time. So appreciate you. Appreciate the get great updates every Tuesday, even though they're not the best news. I say great meaning that you put good information in it, and I know it benefits the public. And I like seeing. I've noticed that your reports, they do hit the newspapers and they hit the internet, and that's very helpful because it's easier to share and get that information out there. And I think now more than ever, people are looking for that information because, like you mentioned, this Omicron it's just out there at a higher rate. And when you start talking about the impacts to the vaccinated population, I mean, we're all seeing that. And again, I'm vaccinated and double vaccinated, and it got me. And so that that's no fun, even when you're vaccinated. You know, I've been positive 3 weeks ago, and even though I'm no longer contagious, and I'm cleared with negative testing, I still have a cough, and I don't like it. You know, it comes at different times, and you get a coughing fit that just does not go away. But getting back to some of the numbers, I want to make sure that I got my notes right. Did you say January 17th through the 23rd, 2,281 positive tests? It was right at the top of your report.
2,800, or you're talking about community cases?
Yes,
2,888, excuse me.
2,888, and that was from the 17th to the 23rd of January.
Correct.
And you said that a year ago, during that same time period, it was,
Just a month ago. So during December 17th through the 23rd, just this last month, we had 160 community cases.
okay. And then you said the biggest impacts were age group 0 to 11. Do you have a percentage to put that together with?
I don't. I'm happy we do have that information available, so Heather can bring it back next week. What we're seeing is an increase among that population, not that they're necessarily the highest impacted. So the 0 to 11 and 12 to 15, you're seeing a fairly steady increase in the percent of cases that those populations make up. The vast majority of cases are still among that 20 to 49-year-old age range.
Okay, but it's the biggest increase in this time period.
For the past
Do you associate that with the kids returning back to school?
It's very likely that that's a part of it. Vaccination rates also tend to be lower among that population. Vaccines have not been out as long for that population. But the return to school we knew would be a challenge. It also comes right after the holidays, which again, we know are typically a challenge. So the confluence of those factors likely contributed to the increase.
Driving into work today and coming down Lacey, I saw a lot of parents in your testing line with the kids there to get tested, and just seeing getting a lot of calls and messages from folks in Corcoran and Avenal about their kids, and their kids are now coming home from school sick. I knew we were going to get called to answer a lot of those questions. And that's why 3 weeks ago, if you recall, I asked, and I know Ed responded a little bit as well. I asked if we were coordinating with the County Board of Education as everyone was awaiting those 28,000 test kits that were sent here. Because at that point on that Tuesday, 3 weeks ago, parents were already reaching out saying, hey, where are the test kits? I need to get my kid tested before they go back to school. On that morning, on that Tuesday, you know, we were told publicly that as you reached out to the Board of Education, that they said, hey, these tests aren't here yet. But at the same time, the superintendent, he had the test, and he was going around getting his photo ops at every school, delivering them on his own. And that right there, he delivered them with the message saying, and by the way, I didn't agree with his message. His message was, save these test kits for the teachers and hook onto these test kits if and when a student is exposed, then we can test them. Well, I believe those test kits were sent down to prevent a lot of kids from getting sick and infected in the first place, at least the ones that were going to get that coming back to school. I don't think those test kits were sent to verify, hey, your kid is COVID positive, and send them home. And we see that impacting so many people. So I wish we can get a follow-up on that, because I didn't see the transparency, the communication between our public health department, who I believe should have got those test kits anyways. I know that was out of your power. I know that was a statewide decision to send them to the Board of Educations, which then turned around and sent them to the different school board districts. Now, the school board districts still had their own power amongst the elected officials to say, no, I want to do what I see everyone else doing, which is get this out there to the parents, email, text them through the systems, And let's get in front of the school and come through and pick up your test kits and test your kids before they come back to school. And we just didn't see that happen in Kings County. If it did happen at any of these independent school districts, I'd like to hear about it. I didn't hear about it. It sounds like a superintendent took it upon himself with those 28,000 test kits and said, hey, I think it was even the newspaper, his quote, it was, Ed Martin put it out in the Lemoore Leader. His quote was, save these for the teachers. And if we need them down the line, if a kid is exposed, well, of course, the kids were coming back sick. And I think this data that you present is proof of that too. But it was disappointing. And I'm gonna leave that there, Mr. Chairman, on that. I don't want to see anyone get it. Never want to see anyone get it, but having to go through it now, anyone who's went through it, I believe it changes your perspective, and in some cases to a higher sensitivity to it. And the only thing I can say about it is that it felt to me like the day in Marine Corps boot camp when we hit the gas chamber and we're inside and they had us remove our gas mask, and that feeling coming out of that gas chamber of that gas behind your nose and trying to go down your throat, that burning feeling, that's the feeling, that's the only way I could describe it when you're sitting in bed and feeling that. And I had a mild to a moderate case. I can't even imagine the people who had to call an ambulance because they couldn't breathe. I didn't get to that point, but still nothing you ever want to have again or see even the kids who are getting it. This is sad, but thank you for the information. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the time.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments for Darcy?
I have just a couple quick ones. Darcy, thank you so much for filling the void during the time you're here. We've credited our first responders with running towards incidents, and you did the same. I really appreciate that. We've seen how many people have vacated government systems throughout the nation, retirements, and you really provided a stopgap for us and a service that was really needed. And so really appreciate that. Secondly, I know testing kits were in short supply. How is that level now?
So thank you for the question. Thank you for the comments. We are still seeing a steady supply of PCR kits, which is good news, although of course the turnaround time right now is not great. 4 to 5 days typically is what we're seeing. Where we're really getting hit are those rapid kits. The iHealth kits, which are the at-home kits, one version of the at-home kits, and then even just rapid antigens are still in very short supply. Healthcare facilities, those are being prioritized for healthcare facilities, including the federally qualified healthcare centers. And word is that CDSS will be distributing additional antigen kits to daycare centers and skilled nursing facilities. Part of what we've seen during this time is that the traditional system for resource request and distribution has been bypassed largely. So you're seeing resources come down through entities that they would not normally come through, as Supervisor Valley pointed out. The intent there is a good one, right? They want to get resources to entities who already have systems in place. For example, with licensing to daycares, they want to get those kits out through the licensing system because they've already got names, addresses, phone numbers. They've got a system in place to get them out. But communication has been disjointed as a result. So when I hear something like, yes, CDSS is getting kits out to daycare centers, I have no information about when or how many or what the communication will be to those daycare centers in advance. So it's hard for me to speak to the larger supply chain in that sense. What we're seeing on our end is that it is very difficult to get rapid antigens that are not for healthcare facilities. And we continue to really advocate for additional kits at the local level. I've had conversations with various individuals who really have vulnerable populations that they serve, and they're going, please, can you get us antigen kits? We advocate on their behalf, on the county's behalf. We express the dire need that this county is in. We still have an opportunity to decrease the impact that this surge has, in my opinion, and part of that can be accomplished through rapid testing. So that work continues. The supply chain is damaged at this point. Demand far outweighs supply right now for those rapid antigens. PCRs, we're still doing okay.
Thank you. One other question too. I know you presented a lot of numbers today with respect to who the major age brackets are that are getting sick. Are those consistent throughout the United States, or is that just Kings County centric numbers?
That's a good question. I'm not sure if they're consistent throughout the United States. We do tend to follow statewide trends fairly closely, albeit later. And of course, what we saw in the beginning of the pandemic was that things were really flipped. That 20 to 49-year-old population was among the cases among that population were among the lowest. 65 and up, they were among the highest. That was true statewide, nationwide. Now it's flipped, and that's largely true statewide. As far as the very recent increase among that 0 to 15 population, I know that there has been an increase in that population statewide. I don't know if it has been consistent with exactly what we've seen here in Kings County.
Right. And I don't know if the question was asked, I can't remember, but of that population, what percentage is vaccinated?
I'm sorry, I did not bring that with me today. Your question was what percent are vaccinated?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we can pull those numbers. I do plan to put this report up on our website after I'm done here today, so we can include that update as well. And some of it is already available, so we'll be able to kind of highlight it for people. I know things can be hard to find. There's a lot on there, so we'll get that out.
Then statewide yesterday, the governor made an announcement that if your kids aren't vaccinated, they're not coming to school starting next January, I guess. And so has to your knowledge, has the federal government approved and this is again, it may be common knowledge, I apologize, the 0 to 11 vaccination yet?
No, not yet. So once they're going by grade level, so once Pfizer is approved for that, my numbers are going to be off now because I'm thinking about case ranges rather than vaccine ranges. But I believe it's that 5 to 11 age range. Once you get full federal approval, and then of course, state and local approval for those vaccines, then they will be mandatory in schools. So at this time, they technically cannot be because they're not federally authorized fully. They're still under emergency use authorization. The 12 to 15-year-olds, that is expected to happen sooner, which I believe is what stemmed the governor's announcement. So they expect for that to be implemented by next January.
Yeah, I mean, just kids have been so jolted by, this process and school, and especially our, youngest and most exposed, I guess, to, lack of education and early learning. I think we know that, the impactful part of the brain and learning is very early on. And just, we're going to shut down schools and I just hope that the information continues to evolve to be able to safely, apply these. If again, it's a choice, right, to be vaccinated, and some people have good reasons and why they're not. But anyways, once again, thank you for everything here, and best of luck in your future endeavors.
Thank you so much.
I have a bunch of questions.
Okay.
I was afraid of that.
We wish you all the best in your future endeavors, and thank you for your service here to our community. And don't forget us. Don't forget the small people.
Absolutely not. Thank
All the
you.
best.
Good, thank you. Any other questions?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, one more quick follow-up.
Yes.
Will youth sports in Kings County be impacted do you see anything foreseeable where it would be shut down based on those age groups and the information, the data that's coming in, or will those sports still be allowed to continue?
I don't, and again, this is a prediction which can be dangerous because we know how quickly.
Yeah, I'm just asking for your best guess. Not going to hold you to it.
So I don't anticipate that happening. What I do anticipate happening, which we've already seen evidence of, the K through 12 system has largely, although not entirely, switched to a group-based contact tracing model, which means anyone that is in the group with the infected or with the COVID positive student is considered a contact and needs to test regularly. That has stopped many games and tournaments as a result. Now, that was true before the group model came about, but I'm hearing that it has had an impact, particularly in other parts of the state where they started that model a little bit earlier. So I think that's where you're going to see the impact, games and tournaments canceled as a result of higher number of cases, higher number of contacts.
Got it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And some of those contests are taking place without fans. So some of the contacts are between the teams, but as long as the teams can prove negativity, a lot of those contests are go ahead and take place, but fans are not allowed.
Got it. Thanks, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Darcy, thank you. Mr. Hill, would you like to follow up with county staff impacts?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. As regularly reported out, since the new surge has began, we now have 274 cases with approximately 50 individuals quarantining or teleworking. That is an increase. Secondary to this, on January 6th, admin held a ad hoc department head meeting where we made recommendations to staff that they could implement hybrid working models in order to ensure continuity of operations for the county. And they went ahead and implemented those, and we'll continue to monitor those and update you as those changes occur.
Very good. Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Hill? That concludes the action items and reports of the morning. We now have two study sessions. First study session deals with the Kings County Association of Governments, and I'm very pleased and honored to recognize Terry King and Kyria and Ed. Who's going to kick off the discussion?
I will kick off the discussion.
Okay.
This is Kyria Martinez. I am in my office because I will be sharing this presentation if Kendall is unavailable. I am here today to introduce Terry King from Kings County Association of Governments on the Regional Transportation Plan and Sustainable Community Strategy. So Terry, you want to go ahead and kick it off?
Thank you, Kyria. Good morning, Chair, members of the board. My name is Terry King. I'm the Executive Director of the Kings County Association of Governments. And a little bit about KCAG is that we are a council of governments whose member agencies are the cities and the county. Supervisor Neves is our board chair, and Supervisor Verboon is another county board member of our KCAG board. One of our roles and responsibilities, or many of our roles and responsibilities, include preparing transportation plans and programs, programming and allocating funds for transportation to cities and counties and transit operators. And one of the major documents we prepare every 4 years is a regional transportation plan and a sustainable community strategies. And we are well underway with those efforts. And we have a consultant, Kendall Flint, who will be talking about the outreach activities we have going on now and upcoming. And so I'd like to introduce Kendall to talk about those efforts. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I apologize. I'm trying to share my screen and it is angry at the moment. Let me see if I'm, oh, there I am. Okay.
It's okay, Kendall. I can go ahead and share it. No problem.
Thanks so much. Again, I'm Kendall Flint with the DKS Associates, and I'm very pleased to be with you this morning. Basically, as Carrie mentioned, all of the metropolitan planning organizations in the country, and specifically in the state of California, update these plans every 4 years. And so what we're going to be talking about today is really the approach that we're taking, and we're also promoting upcoming workshops that will be happening February 8th and 9th. Next slide, please. I think many of you know KCAG represents all 4 cities and the county as part of a regional governance body that basically makes it possible for federal funds to flow through to the local jurisdictions. It's intended to be a facilitator of an even playing field, and also the sort of facilitator of developing what's called the Regional Transportation Plan, which is really all of the various projects and programs that relate to transportation and infrastructure that all of the member agencies will be pursuing over the next 25 years. Next slide, please. So every time we look at this plan, we have to look at it under what we call a financially constrained model, which means we can only look at projects and programs that actually have funding and can be implemented during the window. So it has to also include what's called the Sustainable Community Strategy. This is actually our 3rd round with that. Some of you may be familiar with it as SB 375. And basically what it does in California, there's a requirement to collaborate and to coordinate investment in transportation infrastructure with land use. Now, KCAG has no authority for land use over any of its member jurisdictions, but instead what we do is basically coordinate with your planning departments and with your public works departments to make sure that we're looking at where your planned development is going to happen during that horizon and how the transportation infrastructure will be able to support that. So it basically is a master list of all these plans and programs that are being considered by the agencies. And then it looks on regional issues and multiple modes of travel. So it's not just cars. It also looks at bicycle and pedestrian opportunities as well as public transit. As I mentioned, it links with land use, housing, and employment. So the idea being that theoretically, you would have roads and infrastructure near where people are going to live and work, making it easy for them to be accessible for all modes of these travel. And again, it goes out to 2046, which is over the next 25 years. Next slide, please. So what does the plan do? Ideally, we have a shared vision between all of the member agencies. And as I mentioned, it has to be financially constrained or fiscally sound. One of the challenges that KCAG and the entire county has is you are not at this point a self-help county. You don't have a tax measure in place that allows you to access additional funds from the state. I've talked about this before with the board. Is it fair? Is it right? It's a challenge, but you can only work with the funds that you have that are coming through the federal government, SB1 funds that come in through the state, and then any additional funding opportunities that you all get from either developer impact fees or other ways that you collect revenues. The plan also has to do what we call emphasize system preservation, which means we're really looking at maintaining the roads and systems that we already have as opposed to building new ones. And that's basically a philosophy to sort of, again, concentrate that development within the existing jurisdictions and in the existing corporate boundaries. And of course, it's going to have to meet all of the federal and state requirements. There's an environmental review process that goes along with the plan to make sure that it will meet reductions in things like greenhouse gas emission targets, and it will also be the preferable package of investments moving forward. Next slide, please. So over the coming weeks, you're going to be hearing a lot about these different workshops and meetings we have. Our first set of workshops is going to be February 8th and 9th. And due to COVID, both of these will be held online in a virtual platform. You can actually access our register for the workshop at kingsregionalvision.com or through the KCAG website. Your staff has also been provided this so that you can, again, hopefully put it on the county's websites and the member agencies. Each of the 2 workshops will essentially be the same, so you can attend one or both as your preference, and we will have Spanish language translation available. And during this workshop, we're going to be talking about various approaches to the future investment strategies that KCAG will be looking at, and we'll be asking people about what types of things are important to them. We know from working with members of the community that some folks are really interested in increasing transit availability and transit services. Others would like to see local roads improved. Others would like to see enhancements to some of the existing roadways that connect our communities. So you can get this information obviously on our website and then at this upcoming workshop. We will be recording the workshop, so if folks weren't able to attend it, they can always go back and watch it online and then provide comments, as all the materials will be made available at that website. Next slide, please. And so when we talk about scenarios, one of the things that we're really looking at is the percentage of investments that are being made in specific types of housing, like multifamily housing, apartment buildings, condos, what types of fuels people will be using. Are we going to make a shift over to more, the higher use of electric vehicles or alternative fuels like hydrogen? Are we going to be seeing investments in increasing connectivity that supports bicycle and pedestrian opportunities throughout the county? And what kind of things are we going to be seeing as it pertains to transit and transportation? So all of these things, along with the existing roadways, we're all looking at them collectively, and then we'll develop a scenario that really is going to be more of like a theme of the investment. And then the environmental review will look at that theme and determine if it's going to be able to be compliant with the targets that the state has set up for us and also the federal requirements. Next slide, please. So again, those upcoming workshops are February 8th and February 9th. They start at 6:30 p.m. We are using a Zoom platform for that. You don't have to download Zoom, you just have to register, and then you can access it from any computer, laptop, or cell phone. You can also dial in and just listen to the workshop, and folks will have an opportunity to make public comment. And again, additional information about the process, the considerations that we'll be exploring are all available at kingsregionalvision.com. And next slide, please. And if anyone has questions or wants to get additional information or schedule presentations for other folks, we're going to be meeting with the Farm Bureau. We're going to be hopefully meeting with Family Resource Center. And we really want to make sure that the outreach and engagement is as broad and inclusive as possible. So Terry King is the Executive Director of KCAG. Her information is on this slide. And again, I'm Kendall Flint with DKS Associates, and I can also be reached at email or phone that is listed here. And with that, we are ready to take any questions that you might have. Thank you for your time.
Good. Thank you, Kendall, and thank you, Terry. Are there questions or comments?
I'll comment, Mr. Chair. I just want to say thank you, Terry, and your staff, everyone who put the information out there. Appreciate the work. Mr. Chair, you know better than anyone, this is a committee that impacts everybody around the county, and I think you guys are doing an excellent job of listening to the residents in the rural communities and working to do the best you can. So thank you, Supervisor Boone, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, for serving on that critical, important board. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Supervisor Peterson, you have a question, comment?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and not being on the KCAG board or process, could you maybe briefly outline kind of the pet projects that maybe are the highest on the list of completion or engagement at this point?
Are you talking about overall or
Yeah.
regarding this process?
Within the group, that's the group members, I guess.
Okay. Well, generally, I'll start with highway projects. Ongoing right now, we are starting our latest state highway project, or at least hopefully. We programmed funds we have available to us to start the programming of an interchange at 9th Avenue and 198. So we hope to get that funded and underway. We'll start that probably in a couple of years. So that's one of our last interchanges to make it a freeway segment there on 198. That'll be a lot safer. I'm always scared to drive through there. A lot of traffic with Costco and the meatpacking plant, and both expanding. So that will be really helpful and improve the safety on our state highway systems. We continue to struggle with getting our ridership back up with transit. We do have transit still operating. The transit agency is implementing some micro transit type services, such as like MioCar in Avenel with electric vehicles. We also have, the rural routes that go to Corcoran, Avenel, Calumet City, Stratford, Armona, all those places to get them to the county services here in Hanford. and throughout Lemoore as well. We have been successful in the county as well as the city is implementing active transportation projects such as bicycle lanes and sidewalks. Corcoran received almost $1 million in a state grant. They are badly needed of improving their sidewalks. There's a lot of no sidewalks near schools even. So that'll be rectified with this grant, hopefully. We also implement electric vehicles. We prepared an electric vehicle readiness plan, and that's being implemented through our local agencies and either charging stations or fleet conversions, usually through the help of state grants or with their district grants.
I guess, and I thank you for that kind of outline of that. And I think one of the things on my mind that you know, just seems like a failure, not in our community, but in general in California is planning for the future. And living near and driving regularly on Highway 198 is truly amazing, the amount of traffic that throughway carries now. And I think that we'd better start thinking about, an additional lane at some point. I know it's 2-lane after you get past the air base and things like that. But you try to travel and we all do up and down this state. Interstate 5 is a mess. Highway 99 is a mess. And everybody wants to point to SB1 as the savior. As we know, that was robbed as soon as it was approved. And while we are getting a consistent flow of funding, I just think as costly as that's going to be, that we ought to start thinking about, how the major throughway through our county moves traffic. And I know that's going to be a coordinated effort, but I don't think it's ever too early to start planning for something as major as that. And just the experience of traveling on Interstate 5 and 99. I mean, literally there was a point earlier in the year I left here and it was roughly 35 miles an hour from here all the way to Sacramento. That was on a Friday. So I just, it's a tough thing to fund, but just something to put on their horizon.
Yeah, I know we talk about expanding 198 every single meeting. And when you're in a group of 9 other counties that has access to SB1 funding, they want to fund 99. So we're the little man on a totem pole, but it does come up every single meeting. We want to expand 198. Most of it's in Fresno County. I'm not that old, but I am getting older. And I've been here since 198 was Lacey Boulevard. And now it's a 4-lane and it's busy. You can't imagine it. Where do people come from? And we would like to see that expanded all the way to 99. And I know we're working on the future. Right now, you asked a question about what projects are happening. We're doing 41 this summer. They're going to widen the bridge first. And it'll probably do within the next 5 to 10 years, probably 4-lane on all 41 from through the county. I would say 10, maybe 15 years.
Maybe 50.
The bridge is first. The bridge is going to be done. 19th Avenue. Terry took care of that one. She also did 12th Avenue overpass. And now we're working on 9th Avenue. And I think that goes in with the city of Hanford and the future growth of everything on the east side of town. And also the trunk line that connects the sewer system. So we're all working on it. I think it's going pretty good. It's a very slow process. And when you deal with cities and counties and also the state and trying to find funding, it takes a long time. But I think it's a really good group that we get together with. We just had our meeting on Friday and some on housing, but a lot on transportation. And it's a good group to work with. So I think Joe was on the line too. And now we have some of the city of Hanford participating in most all the events now. So it helps out a lot. Thank you, Terry.
Sure. Yeah, our regional transportation plan is a long-range planning document. Of course, it does have to be financially constrained, meaning what are our revenues? Since we are not a self-help county, like everyone else around us, except for Kern, they can double their money and use it as leverage to get even more money. So it's real important we start looking at that. Also,
You want to bring that to the board to
Eventually, yeah, when I have time and staff, we want to do that. We
Could I
started
ask a
that-
question with respect to that too? I mean, with respect to self-help, is it only respective to transportation? Or is it they're broader? Because I think it's broader. Yeah, and I think that's the, I mean, while I want to focus on transportation, and it may be an opportunity to, broaden that, there may be some negatives associated with it as well as being a self-help county and so.
Well, I think with the self-help county for transportation specific, you have to prepare an expenditure plan. So that tells the public what the money will be spent on. So every year in local transportation fund, which is a 1/4 cent sales tax, we get about $4.5 million. So double that, we might get $9 million a year. That's still not very much, but you can leverage that on the money as well to get even more money to start your projects, to show the public this is what your money is doing.
Sure.
So with a broad measure, of course, it's a lower voter threshold, but the public doesn't know what you're really going to be spending it on. And it could be based on whatever city council or board of supervisors is there in 20 years. So it may be different than when you approve that. Of course, the measure has to be put on a ballot. You have to have the county board of supervisors approve that, as well as a majority of the cities with a majority of the population to do that. So a transportation sales tax is probably a better way to go. Even though we need more votes, it at least lets the public know what their money is going to be going toward. I think what Hanford went with the measure, that was one of the problems with that. People just didn't know where the money was going, so they didn't feel comfortable voting for it. Supervisor Boone mentioned our valley-wide efforts. We do have a workshop coming up in, I believe it's in March. It'll be at the Tulare Agri Center, but we're focusing on State Route 99. That is a valley-wide project. We'd also benefit from that with our cross connections. So we hope to get funding for that. There's also coalition with coming up with a valley-wide regional priority list that could get a stamp of approval from everyone to go forward in applications. There's some criteria to be on that. One of the concerns with Kings County is we don't have any projects that are shelf ready or ready to go to get that money that magically appears. If you have environmental clearance on a project, hey, you can get access to this money. But if you don't have anything that's environmentally cleared, you have no shot. So getting things in the pipeline is very important in getting these state and federal funds. And then SB1 was mainly for fix it first and rehab. But some money went into expansion type projects, but still it's not that much money to, these projects are expensive. And interchange is going to be $45 million. So at $9 million a year, it takes a while to get that funded, as well as everything else.
Well, and I think that's, we talked a little bit about road maintenance recently and just the cost per mile to, put in an overlay is astronomical. So challenge, that's, congratulations. Thank you for, your work and but the vision, that's why you guys are there, I guess, but
The vision gets hijacked every now and then. Yeah. I brought it up at the last meeting. They wanted all of us to get together to support Highway 99 construction and refab. And I said, well, we could have been done with it had they put the high rail down the middle of it. But it was hijacked by Fresno County Economic Development Corporation and the unions, taken away from the highway because Selma, Fowler, and Kingsburg did not want it. So to get them on board, they sent it through Kings County. Had they have done it like they planned on down the north and southbound lanes of Highway 99, all this project we're looking at to do now would be done in this process with $100 billion high-speed rail. And so we got to make sure we don't get hijacked. We got to attend all the meetings. We got to make our voices heard.
Yeah, and also currently the state administration and legislation is not in favor of expansion. So it's very difficult to get those through currently. But I think such as like 41 at the county line north, because of public outcry, it's getting funded. So, well, it's not approved yet, but we assume it will be funded. But that's a rarity. But that is a safety issue. It's not a adding more cars to the road. It's safety. And that's our issue in this valley. It's safety. It's not like in LA where you need to add 2 more lanes to a 6-lane, freeway. We just want 1 more lane for safety.
Thank you.
Supervisor Valley?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, no. I think when you start talking sales tax initiatives for local highways and freeways, I don't think that's a sell based on the fact that you have so many people that don't live here in the county who are using those roadways and causing those impacts. I think before we ever went down that road, that we spend a lot more time and a lot more effort engaging our federal reps and our statewide reps to get the funds that are already there to bring them home for that. So I'm all for that, meaning there are monies there. I just don't see how you run the same campaign that SB1 ran to say, here's where your money's going to go on your roads. And I don't know if it was Rabina Pearson, I think you mentioned that, hey, these monies were there, then they got hijacked, right? And so then how do you go back to Kings County residents to say, to give them the same spill and the same campaign? If that works, I just don't think the timing for that is right now, because that message is too fresh in people's minds, and whether or not they believe in the fact that some of that money is being reinvested. We're seeing it, right? When Dominic is coming, we're seeing some of that money. I don't know how much more we could be seeing if all those monies were actually being used the way they were presented to voters, right? Yeah, and I always think we have far too much leverage, especially with the prisons in Kings County and the amount of COs and staff that impact and cause traffic congestion on our roadways. I think that's always heavy weight to leverage state. We need these monies, and we did. I mean, as you mentioned, Highway 41 to the north, yeah, they did make a lot of noise. And so I think last year when our county was approached, what's your number one priority if Congressman Valadao is able to get an earmark? Earmarks are coming back. And if I recall right, his funding opportunity went to the expansion of that Highway 41. Even though for years we're talking about the need for Highway 198, and look how long it took. I heard over 25 years of lobbying Congress to go from to open up the lane from Visalia to Hanford on Highway 198. And if we could get Fresno County leadership, all those elected officials with a heavy voice to coordinate with Kings County, then I believe we could make some noise to get a legitimate shot at expanding Highway 198 from Hanford to I-5, which obviously that's needed without argument, but we need the voices to make sure that argument is heard loud and clear. So I would be all for that and doing the work that we need to do before we went down the road of going to the voters for that matter. I think we have other needs to go to the taxpayers for to make sure, that our county is protected in a number of ways. That's just my input. Thank you. But again, thank you for everything else that you and your staff put out today. It's good information.
Good, thank you, Terry. Additional questions or comments for Terry or Kendall or Ed or Kyria? Thank you very much, Terry.
Thank you.
The final study session of the morning comes from Public Works regarding county parks. And I see Tim.
Yes.
Morning, sir.
Good morning. We'll scale this down from the freeways to about 100 acres within the Kings County. Here. Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Tim Bashir, Kings County Parks and Grounds Superintendent. here today in the study session to offer your board information regarding park operations for 2022 while we continue to navigate COVID for the purpose of making the parks available to the public, keeping in mind the safety of all staff, as well as the park visitors. I'll just recap the last 2 or 3 years. So in 2020, the decision was made to delay the opening of parks due to the global pandemic. Ultimately, we did not open the parks that year. In 2021, last year, we requested direction from your board on how to proceed with park operations. At that time, we offered the board several options that would allow us to open the parks while satisfying all state mandates. Those options included hand washing, excessive hand washing, reducing facility capacity, obviously maintaining distance, and waiving of all park fees. That was all aimed at with the objective of minimizing interaction with the public. At that time, your board decided to open the parks and waive all associated fees, which did minimize interaction within the office as far as taking reservation payments, as well as at the parks from staff and the public. So in addition, we posted hygiene reminders, capacity limits on both English and Spanish throughout the restroom and other facilities at the parks. We still honored reservations, we just waived the fees. So essentially the model was at that time business as usual while waiving the fees. This worked out very well. Staff was able to maintain distance, it cut down public interactions, and staff was effectively able to offer the park space to the public. So typically during my presentation in the normal agenda, I would offer my recommendations, which would have been provide direction to the Public Works regarding 2022 park season and authorize the opening of Kings County parks to the public with or without whatever chosen modifications your board decided to implement. That would be effective April 1st of 2022. So here's the caveat I want to throw out there. If we move forward with the idea of minimizing interaction with the public, that date of April 1st, 2022 includes Easter. So last year we opened after Easter, which is by far the busiest day, inviting anywhere from 1,500 to 2,000 people into the park. Obviously with the restroom facilities, you know, that would have been quite something to deal with. So if we move forward with that idea of minimizing interaction, I would recommend opening possibly after Easter, which would be an opening date of April 22nd. So the decision was made to open the parks. Okay, so yeah, that's how we moved forward last year. Unless you have, you know, I'm willing to address any questions you have right now.
Good, thank you, Tim. Questions, comments?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Like again, as a memo pointed out last year, the board made use of our ARPA funds to help close the gap on the loss of revenue. So is the message here today based on your plans to move forward this fiscal year, and with obviously the pandemic still here? Do you see the need to come back before the board for those ARPA funds to close that again, to close that gap, the loss of revenue?
Our revenue off, it's a general fund, so if it's in the interest to offset the parks hit to the general fund, then yes.
Okay, and then so I think the second question, Mr. Chair, is when will the board get a presentation on the second half of our ARPA funds, and to see the plan on how to invest those funds moving forward?
Thank you, Supervisor Valley. Excuse me, those are coming back for a study session at the 1st of February, as well as an additional action item after that.
Okay. At this point, do you see a staff recommendation to implement the use of some of those ARPA funds to offset this loss of revenue to the parks?
The ARPA committee has not discussed that option, but that's always at the discretion of your board. And those funds are set to offset these costs such as these.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, do you think that's something that our board time-wise should take up sooner, or something we can sit back and wait on for the presentation and to decide on how we may or may not be able to help offset this revenue with our parks?
Yeah, no, I think we have time. I think by, again, missing that Easter vacation timeframe, you not only lose out on all of that participation, you lose out on a lot of revenue. So when you bypass that event, that this division is going to need some help to be able to weather another storm.
Okay.
And so, but I think by, setting the opening date beyond Easter, I think that's a good strategy as far as health concerns. But as far as fiscal concerns, it's that division's still going to need some.
So I guess if we get anything out of this study session, it's that point is duly noted, and we could put a pin in that to bring that back to the board's attention in a, sounds
Tim,
like
do you
a
have
very
any
near future.
feel for the usage, not counting Easter last year?
Yeah, it was actually pretty consistent
Yeah.
and my thinking, I mean, within, I'm just gonna say very consistent. I can show you the numbers. So it was pretty close. My thinking is that even though we missed Easter, which usually bumps us up pretty good, people were just happy to get back out.
Right.
With the addition of the disc golf course at Burris Park as well as Hickey, it brought more people in. So the attendance was relatively consistent. So what we missed out on initially kind of evened out as the season went on. And I would expect much the same. Oh, especially with us waiving the fees, once that word got out. I can't say that they wouldn't be willing to pay the entrance fees. But I'm sure it may have, some people that might have been on the fence in the past, it may have given more of an effort to get out there.
And again, by offering that opportunity for folks to experience the parks and understand the parks, might be willing to part with their money in the future, should we get past that event. But I think it's been a good example of allowing folks to experience that park environment without having to pay.
Yes, sir.
And not know what they're, going to get. So
Yes, sir.
I think it's a good marketing plan.
Mhm.
But I also think that, if we're going to keep health concerns in the forefront, we're probably going to have to take that same model again today.
I agree.
Mr. Hill?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to correct for the record, we will not be bringing a study session. We'll be bringing an action item next week for ARPA and the recommendations from the ARPA committee for round 2.
So it's not going to be a study session. It's going to be direct.
Okay.
But there will be that leeway there.
Okay. Okay. Well, okay. So then just based on that, I thought I heard you say that the committee hasn't gotten together yet to designate and outline those money.
No, the committee has, they just have not recommended the parks.
Okay. All right. Got it. Thanks for the clarification on that. And that is better news.
Yeah. Additional questions for Tim? Dominic has rose to his feet, so I'm kind of wondering if he has something to say or if he's got the door or the hook for Tim. I'm not sure which. Here's the door, here's your, yeah.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Dominic Tyberski, Public Works. The only thing I was going to add is one of the reasons we're coming to you now is we have been getting calls for reservations. We weren't really sure how to handle that. Typically, we would start to collect the fees, not knowing how the board was wanting us to proceed. We've held off on that. So we are starting to get a lot of interest in reservations.
Yeah, and with the Easter and with the unseasonably warm temperature now, it has people thinking about outdoor activities and some of the park and especially with the disc golf, activity, which I think probably increased population as well. So there's a lot of moving parts, but I think, again, for discussion this morning, do we really want to miss that Easter vacation once again? And go with the model of last year.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of the discussion point that I think Dominic and Tim would like to hear.
And I would just want to point out that this is a study item today, so no action can be taken on it. But certainly the discussion, I think, is going to provide some good guidance to the Public Works Department and Parks. But I think that if the board's going to take formal action on or give formal direction, that'll need to be agendized accordingly at a future meeting.
Correct.
Well, if you're looking for discussion, Mr. Chair, on the health impacts, I think just going off today, some would argue that the pandemic is in a higher red level than ever, based on, especially when you look at the report we got earlier from an increase of, I don't even do the math, but to go from 150 cases a month ago in a 1 week period to 2,888. I think one can argue that why wouldn't we keep the health right of the people of Kings County, especially children, keep that as a higher priority over $42,000, right? Which had money sent to us to offset if the board agrees to do that in formal action at a later date. But I'm with you on that. I think that should be priority.
Good, thank you.
I guess I would argue that outdoors is the safest place to be for kids. I would argue that parks probably should be open, because if they're not going to be out in the parks, they're going to be indoors, and the transmission rate we know is far greater in closed areas. And you know, I mean, if we can provide signage that provides for safe use of our restrooms, I mean, it's a recommendation, as much of everything is that we've done with COVID, that I think it provides an alternative, a safe alternative to come together and so I don't know. I don't know if I would support you know, closing the parks. I think it's one of the safe opportunities that exists today. So
Some of the problem is staffing. And part of my report, you know, I'll be talking about, you know, we've had to cut down some flex time, the flex scheduling, because we just don't have drivers. Kings Waste and Recycling is down to a third of their staff. And should the impacts of the virus hit staff, then how are you going to maintain that structure to be open? Yeah, you know, that's the only thing. And when we open fully to the public, and I fully understand your comments, but you have to collect money, you have to go through the entire operation as before. So you have to have staffing in place to be able to execute those services. And that's where I think I'm having a little bit of concern, and just go ahead and open them up if you want to, but it's going to be difficult to staff should we have impacts around the pandemic.
yeah, so we're coming into February. All indications are that you know, this thing goes like this and comes down like this. So, you know, I know it takes a while to plan for staff, but I get a feeling that come April, you know, this may be less of an issue, but we do have to plan accordingly. And so I just think we need to provide every opportunity to make it safer for, you know, people to come together. And if it's an option, a park is an option to congregate, then I think it's an option that, you know, should be explored. But yeah, it's just one opinion.
Yep. You ready to move?
I'm outside. I haven't been sick. Just keep it open. Just promote. We're going to give them free access to the park. Just use it as promotion to get people that would never go, and maybe get new plans in the future.
And then Tim, I think we talked about before, fully maxed out was like 2,000 people, 2,500, and the per square footage was still pretty, you know.
Yeah, with 2,000 plus people in the park, Burris Park, and the parks are pretty close to the same, give or take a couple acres. It swallows that amount of people pretty easily. You still have room. And if you do the math on keeping social distance in 50 acres, it comes out to a ridiculous amount, like 44,000 people. So as far as capacity levels, we're not going to reach that. The whole town of Hanford is not going to converge on one of the parks on one day. So we're safe. And I think that Supervisor Peterson was saying, the parks offers us a wonderful opportunity to allow people to get outside for psychological health as well as, you know, physiological health. And if we can minimize the interaction with the public by not taking fees, that's also a great direction as far as safety goes. And then if ARPA funds can also supplement that, you know, that's just a win-win for everybody.
And then do you have a contingency plan should staff become unable to fulfill their duties for trash, cleanup, restroom, sanitation, and all of the other duties around having an open park?
Well, we could just attack it from a public works standpoint, not necessarily a parks division. You know, if something bad happens and all staff has to quarantine and nobody's available, you know, as a department, I'm sure we can make it work.
Yeah, and there's always outside organizations like Kings Rehab that has the contract to do the cart structures. And so there are, if you want to think outside the box and maybe contact some outside agencies that are also capable and able and that have been performing those duties, throughout the pandemic. Regarding, CART, just like with the Amtrak and other forms of transportation, they range anywhere from 20 to 40% of what we were 2 years ago, but there's just not as much traffic. But my fear is, did you lose staff or half your staff?
That was always a concern, living this model last year. It didn't turn out that way, luckily. I mean, granted, you can't use that to predict the future. However, it did work for us. And I think it's partly because we have such an opportunity to keep a grand distance, we can do our job fairly far away from our customers and from each other.
Yeah.
So I think that had a lot to do with it, and that really minimizes the impact of COVID on our staff.
My biggest fear is going to Hickey Park and having your family out there and in a hot day have blow one of the limbs off the land in your party.
Oh, no.
That happened a couple times, so. That's worse than COVID.
Yeah, oak trees, they're not forgiving.
Oh.
When they're ready to go, and that's a perfectly
So
healthy
I
oak
had
tree.
to hit one of the guys in the head, laid him on the ground.
Correct.
Now.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
So he got up either way.
Mr. Chair, follow up for Ed Hill on with the I think the conversation has been mostly about whether or not the county wanted to not charge folks versus the closure of it. I don't think we got in depth on that topic. But that being said, Ms. Hill, what are you hearing now at the state level in regards to this pandemic possibly being over now in about 6 more weeks?
So as Ms. Pickens mentioned earlier, and as well as Supervisor Peterson, we do expect this to decline. There's also talk about this moving from a pandemic to an endemic status. So hopefully that's the beginning sign. Predictions, as mentioned earlier, are dangerous, but we have been following what the other states and counties have seen. This is a fast-acting virus, the Omicron version of it. So we're hoping that it will decline rapidly in February.
Nice.
But then that doesn't mean that there isn't another subgroup which they just typed and crossed. Sorry, that's a blood term where they just isolated on the news today. They mentioned that.
Got it. Okay, so with that best case scenario, I mean, even now, I mean, look what we saw on Christmas when it was bad. People still gathered indoors, and so I'm all for the outdoor approach where I think come Easter, people are going to get the families together at the homes anyways and have those large, they'll probably do it out back though. That's the day obviously to be in the backyard and all that. But I think we're in a good position health-wise and fiscal-wise to get through another year on the subject of our park.
CDC, they archive the Parks and Recreation guidance. They don't even update that webpage anymore. So, that tells me that they feel comfortable enough saying, well, go ahead.
Well, I know I worked with a couple gyms during the COVID outbreak early on. And OSHA came down one day and there was a gymnasium that had roll-up doors. And they said, as long as you have your fans blowing outside and your equipment 6 feet apart, you met the criteria. So I don't know why we're even having this conversation. I think the park should be open. And look forward to this.
Yes.
Just another public health message that has been shared early on, and I just want to keep reinforcing, there is no better disinfectant than fresh air and sunlight. So that ties in with what the CDC recommends and the drive to keep folks outside. And as you'd heard me in the past, any events that drive people inside, of course, increases the chance of spread where outside it's.
Super Bowl?
Yeah.
It's going to happen whether we like it or not. So
Yeah.
just embrace it and have a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, it's the restroom, it's the water fountains, it's all of the other amenities that people use and touch and sometimes don't follow hygiene procedures with those kind of assets. And that's where the problem is. I don't care if you go to a high school, a grammar school, or a college. Some people just get laxed on their hygiene facilities and it becomes a problem. All right. Tim, you have direction?
I do have a direction and I'll be back before your board shortly. And I thank you for your time.
Get the gophers under control, keep the limbs pruned up, and get the grass green and ready to go.
And the trees do look good. I think staff has done an outstanding job of some of the horticultural processes.
Yeah, the staff that I have right now are amazing. And,
Oh. They are.
I'll tell you what, when you get the big windstorms that have come through and people are seeing down trees all over the news. Well, I mean, you wouldn't probably get ABC 30 out to one of the parks for a down oak tree, but I can tell you there haven't been any.
You're doing good.
Yeah, no, it's.
Just keep the highway patrol notified. We have the burnout competition that has happened on the road. Like last year or 2 years ago.
When we had the truck.
Yeah.
I still got skid marks in front of Hickey. That was a good one. That was the, for the record truck show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Tim. Thanks, Dominic. Appreciate it. Good luck. With that concludes all of the business on today's agenda. We'll move to board member announcements and reports to cover the last 2 weeks of their own activities. Supervisor Fagundes.
Just catching up on a lot of backlog meetings and protocols and everything else. We just jump from one to the other. I do anyway. I guess I'm still trying to learn.
You're always learning.
With that, thank you.
Supervisor Boone.
That's good to know.
I didn't say, well, yes, I did. Too old to learn.
No, it's good. I'm glad to hear that.
You still got to get there.
Well, I'm getting old. On the 14th, we had CalCog board meeting, and last Friday we had Hamilton Valley Regional Policy Council meeting, and we had the REAP meeting. Supervisor Neville's on board. My internet gave out towards the end of the REAP meeting, the action plan. So I missed the final stages of it, but I did get my internet fixed yesterday, so we're ready to go. So thank you.
Supervisor Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Last week we had our monthly San Joaquin Unified Air Pollution Control District meeting. It was the first meeting for our new chair, Monty Reyes from the city of Porterville. And our vice chair, our new vice chair is Vito Chiesa, supervisor, San Joaquin, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. San Joaquin.
No, not Merced.
Yeah, okay. One of the big items, we continue to run a very a great program. It's called Tune In, Tune Up. So you can bring your vehicle in if it doesn't pass smog. For those that are financially challenged, they'll allow for funds to be allocated to you to take your vehicle to a smog shop to get it smogged. If you meet the criteria and they can't make your vehicle pass smog, they'll actually look at accessing vehicles for you. We moved another 4 million into that program at the last meeting. And let's see, secondly, yesterday we had our KT AAA meeting. One important item that came out for those seniors that need assistance with their taxes. If you make below 55,000, you can contact our local senior center, and they will set you up with a person to assist you in doing your taxes. So that's another great program that KT AAA offers. Jamie Sharma, who's been our director for 5 years, 4 or 5 years now, is moving on to Fresno County, KT AAA. So she'll still be in the community, but we all appreciate her service and, the cooperative effort between Kings and Tulare counties to provide services to our seniors. The other issue is the Seniors in the Park event that happens every year, just based on COVID. It's coming up pretty quick. They decided to cancel that again this year. So with that, that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. Thank you. Supervisor Valley.
Thanks, Chair. Just continue to work from home, getting the year going, and was spending time getting back healthy. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. For me, attended the State of the American Energy webinar. This was the 13th annual webinar that was put on mainly by the energy companies, talking about all of the fuels and the challenges of the pandemic. And when you don't think about, fuel going down, dropping to 80% of what it was at the peak of the pandemic because people were not commuting. And as work patterns change and and work environments change, the industry is still trying to work back through some of those issues. Cal Vans continues to operate with 403 vans operating in the fleet. 314 of them are in ag, 89 are in the general van pool service, and we continue to serve many counties. Calviva impacts, we did meet with the new executive director and talked about mental health services as well as the health department and community support projects, and Calviva continues to stay very, very active. Kings County Homeless Collaborative had a meeting on January 18th. Housing developer update challenges were discussed, and as we did this morning, we talked about one project. Funding is always an issue, zoning and placing, and there are a lot of issues that developers have challenges with, and we continue to work through and try to resolve some of those issues. Southport Kings USA is eagerly waiting the report from Department of Water Services, Water Resources on the groundwater management plan. We do expect that to be out this week, so we'll look for that. The financial report was reviewed and accepted, as well as the audit was a clean audit and everything worked well. We also applied for additional grant funds that will help with the Kings River Reclamation Project. There is going to be leveraging of Prop 68 funds to create flood basins, conveyance improvements, and some rehab, especially in that area. Empire, we are #1 north through the Kings, where we had some river breaches in the past. So they're going to reclaim a lot of that area. Yesterday at the Kings County Behavioral Health Board meeting, the data notebook was discussed. Even though the data notebook is really not a report card, it is more of a tool to compare behavioral health services in Kings County with the rest of the state. And so that project went through and been submitted. We also did hear about the Kind Center. The Kind Center is a project through the Mental Health Services, Inc., who we entrusted the student services side of behavioral health. And so we will continue to work with them as they serve school-age population. The Oak Wellness Center, which is located across the street, continues to be shut down because of the pandemic. Many services are still online, and clients are taking advantage of that. But they are really looking again for that in-person services as they had in the past, that the Oak Wellness Center. And that also provides a respite for the families who have folks that are needed of those services. So they continue to move forward. West Hills College basketball continues to be influenced by the pandemic, as we talked a little bit about some of the sports. Games are being postponed and rescheduled. No fans are in attendance at many venues. And that's going to be in place for the remainder of January. It is getting close to the end of the season. But there will be a decision made probably this weekend about how to move forward in February. And the impacts continue to impact a lot of other places. CART continues to have driver shortages. Kings Federal Credit Union across the street had to adjust their lobby hours due to staff complications surrounding the protocols. And Kings Waste and Recycling also is down to 1/3 of their staffing present. And so things are being done, but they're not being done efficiently. And it always concerns me when you have people out there and you don't have enough staff. Safety is problematic. Not having enough spotters, not having enough backup system to keep everybody safe and keep the doors open and keep it clean as possible. So with that, that concludes my remarks. Mr. Hill, would you like to talk about board correspondence, upcoming events, and information on future agenda items?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. For board correspondence, we received various financial documents from the Department of Finance, the November and August 2021 transaction activity report and treasurer's report of cash and investments, and the monthly fund balance. We did receive notice for the Kings County Waste and Recycling Authority Board of Directors regular meeting scheduled for Wednesday, January 26, 2022 at 9 a.m. at Kings Waste and Recycling Conference Room at 7803 Hanford Armona Road. Your board received an invite from Westland Solar Park to attend their celebration and ribbon cutting ceremony for the completion of the Aquamarine Solar Project. The event will take place located at the Aquamarine Solar Project on February 1st from 1 to 3:30 located at Laurel Avenue and 25th Avenue in Lemoore. Your board also received an invitation from the Corcoran Chamber of Commerce honoring the Man of the Year, Isaiah Ramirez, and the Woman of the Year, Caitlin Smith, and the Junior Citizen of the Year, Amanda Curtis. The event will be held February 2nd at 5:30 at the Recreation Association of Corcoran Gym at 900 Dairy Avenue. There is a $45 per person charge and RSVPs are due January 26th. Your board received a letter of opposition from Dr. Jeffrey Garcia concerning the proposed Sandridge Cattle Beef and Harvesting Plant and Feedlot. That's included in your correspondence. Your board also received the grand jury investigation report from the Kings County Elections Department. As established by code, we need to respond within 90 days. Given this, our response is due March 23rd. We have already scheduled our initial meeting with staff and we'll work to bring that report back to you for approval. Finally, the Kings County Office of Education has completed their redistricting requirements, and the Board of Education approved the new maps, which are included in your board correspondence as well. For upcoming events, the Children's Storybook Garden and Museum is hosting a Kids Night Out on Friday, February 11th, Saturday, March 12th, and Friday, April 22nd from 5:30 to 8, located at 175 East 10th Street in Hanford. The cost is $25 per child for members and $28 for non-members. Hanford Chamber of Commerce is also hosting a business after-hours mixer from on February 15th from 5:30 to 7 at 218 North Dowdy Street in Hanford. For upcoming agenda items, we have an item from HSA, Behavioral Health and Probation on Assembly Bill 2083, an MOU between the three agencies and the Kings County Office of Education and Central Valley Regional Center for implementation of an integrated system of care. Admin, we're bringing, of course, the American Rescue Act plan allocations from the ARP committee and a study session for the annual legislative platform. I knew there was a study session in there. I just couldn't remember what it was. And Community Development Agency will be bringing an agreement with AM Consulting Engineering for consulting services for the Lemoore Mobile Home Park West Water Project for consideration. County Council will be bringing appointments of trustees to the Hanford Cemetery District, and then Public Health, of course, will have the COVID-19 update. That concludes board correspondence.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Hill. Any questions or comments from Mr. Hill?
Just one thing, we got a email yesterday, I believe, from Corcoran Irrigation District asking for a support letter for a recharge statement improvement or whatever. So I sent it to staff to letter out to them. So
I think that's the same grant that the groundwater management. I think there's some groundwater recharge, conveyance, and some channel clearing. So I think there's three things in that discussion that again to leverage some other Prop 68.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, sorry, I forgot one thing. I would like to thank Behavioral Health for lending staff again to assist us in the admin office while we fill some vacancies. It's been really helpful for them. Next week, HSA is helping us out, so we really appreciate the help in admin office.
Good. Appreciate that. Any other business come before the board? With that, thank you very much, everyone, for being here. Stay healthy, stay safe. The next regular scheduled meeting will be Tuesday, February 1st at 9 a.m. And with that, we will stand adjourned until next week.